Hana Kim kicked a broken metal panel across the junkyard and watched it clang against a pile of discarded machinery. The sound echoed through the empty lot, like everything else in her life lately, hollow and unwanted. She pulled her jacket tighter against the cold wind that swept across the colony of New Baekdu. The rejection letter from the Colonial Youth Academy was still folded in her pocket, burning like hot metal against her leg, even though it was just paper. Unorthodox methods, she muttered, repeating the words they had written. Lacks appropriate social integration. That was fancy talk for saying she was weird and nobody liked her. The junkyard stretched out before her like a metal ocean frozen in time. This was her favorite place on the entire planet of Cheongsan 7. Here, nobody cared if she talked too much about circuits, or if she ate lunch alone. Here, the broken things did not judge her. Hana climbed over a twisted piece of a harvester drone, her homemade scanner beeping softly in her hand. She had built it from spare parts over the last year. The academy teachers had said it was impressive but unstable, just like her, she supposed. The scanner started beeping faster. Hana frowned and tapped its screen. The readings made no sense. There was a power signature coming from deep beneath the newest pile of trash. But that was impossible. The junkyard had no power lines running through it. Everything here was dead metal and broken dreams. She followed the signal, climbing deeper into the maze of garbage. Her father would be angry if he knew she was here again. Tae-sung worked so hard at the fusion plant, pulling double shifts to keep them fed after her mother had left. He did not need to worry about his strange daughter getting hurt in a junkyard. But Hana could not stop. The signal pulled at her like a mystery that needed solving. After 20 minutes of climbing, she found it. At first, it looked like just another piece of wreckage, a curved wall of dark metal covered in dirt and rust. But when Hana brushed away the grime, she saw something that made her heart stop. The metal underneath was not metal at all. It was something else, something that seemed to drink in the light and reflect it back in colors that had no names. Strange symbols covered the surface, carved in patterns that hurt her eyes if she looked too long. And there, barely visible beneath layers of industrial waste, was what looked like a door. Hana's hands shook as she cleared away more debris. The door was huge, at least 5 meters tall. What kind of ship needed doors this big? She checked her scanner again. The power signature was stronger now, pulsing like a heartbeat that had waited a very long time to be found. She spent the next 3 hours digging, ignoring the cuts on her hands and the ache in her back. By the time the sun started to set, she had exposed a section of the hull at least 20 meters long. This was not just a piece of wreckage. This was an entire ship buried beneath decades of human garbage. Hana pressed her hand against the door, feeling the cold surface under her palm. Nothing happened. She tried pushing. Nothing. She tried the symbols, pressing them in different patterns. Still nothing. Then she remembered her power cell. It was a small battery she had modified to output different voltages for her experiments. She pulled it from her backpack and looked for any kind of port or connection point. There. Near the base of the door was a small depression, almost invisible in the dying light. Hana knelt down and examined it. The shape was wrong for any human connection, but maybe... She pulled out her multi-tool and started modifying one of her power cables. If she could just match the voltage pattern, maybe bypass the obvious connections and feed power directly to what looked like a secondary system. Her father had always said she thought sideways, while everyone else thought straight. The academy had called it unorthodox. Hana called it the only way that made sense. She connected the cable and held her breath. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the symbols on the door began to glow. Not all of them, just a few, flickering like stars trying to remember how to shine. A sound came from deep within the ship. It was low and musical, like a bell that had forgotten its own song. The door did not open, but a small panel slid aside, revealing a screen covered in more of those impossible symbols. Hana stared at it, her mind racing. This was not human technology. This was not even close to human technology. The power systems were completely different. The interface made no sense. Everything about it was alien, which meant aliens were real, or had been real. And one of their ships was buried in a junkyard on a backwater human colony where a rejected 14-year-old girl had just woken it up. Hannah started laughing. She could not help it. The Academy thought she was not good enough for them. They had no idea what she had just found. They had no idea what she was going to do. She pulled out her notebook and started sketching the symbols, documenting everything she saw. The panel's glow was getting brighter now, and new patterns were appearing. It was like the ship was trying to talk to her, trying to reach across thousands of years and say hello. "Hi," Hana whispered back. "I'm Hana. I'm here to help you." Deep within the buried vessel, systems that had slept for 3 millennia began to wake. Emergency protocols activated. Diagnostic programs ran through damaged circuits, searching for the crew that had abandoned the ship so long ago. But there was no crew. There was only a rejected human girl with rough hands and a kind heart. Standing in a junkyard as night fell over a colony that had no idea everything was about to change. Hana packed up her tools and started the climb back home. She would return tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day until she understood what she had found. The Academy did not want her? Fine. She had just found something more important than any school. She had found something that needed her. 3 weeks passed like a fever dream. Hana spent every free moment at the buried ship, and every moment away from it felt like drowning. Her father noticed the cuts on her hands and the dark circles under her eyes, but Hana lied and said she was just working on projects. It was not completely a lie. The ship was the biggest project of her life. She had managed to restore power to 3 more panels. Each one showed her something new and impossible. The symbols were starting to make a strange kind of sense, not because she could read them, but because patterns repeated. She began to understand that certain shapes meant power, others meant medical, and some meant warning. There were a lot of warnings. "Hana, you look terrible," said a voice behind her. Hana jumped and spun around, nearly dropping her tablet. Minji Park stood at the edge of the cleared area, holding 2 cups of coffee and looking concerned. Minji worked at the colony's data center, analyzing shipping routes and resource allocations. She was 26, calm, and one of the few people who did not treat Hana like a weird kid. "How did you find me?" Hana asked. "You've been disappearing every day for weeks. I followed you." Minji climbed down and handed Hana a coffee. Then she saw the ship and froze. "What in the stars is that?" "I don't know," Hana admitted. "But it's not human." Minji walked closer, her eyes wide. She reached out to touch the glowing symbols, then pulled her hand back. "This is alien, actual alien. Hana, do you know what this means? We need to report this to the director immediately." "No," Hana grabbed Minji's arm. "Please, not yet. They'll take it away. They'll lock it down and bring in official scientists, and I'll never get to understand it. Just give me a little more time." Minji looked at her for a long moment. "You really care about this thing, don't you?" "It's dying," Hana said quietly. "I can feel it. The power systems are failing. Whatever this ship is, it's been alone for a very long time. I think it's been waiting for someone to find it. I think I'm supposed to help it. You're 14 years old. So? Age doesn't matter. The ship doesn't care how old I am. It just cares that someone finally came." Hana turned back to the panels. "I activated something last night. A new system. It started playing sounds, like music but mathematical. I think it's trying to talk to me." Minji sighed. "Show me." For the next 2 hours, Hana showed Minji everything she had discovered. The power systems that worked on principles human science did not understand. The medical bay that was slowly repairing itself, using materials it somehow pulled from the surrounding junk. The navigation data that showed star charts from thousands of years ago, and the music, the strange mathematical music that pulsed through the ship like a heartbeat. "I've been thinking," Minji said slowly. "If this ship is as old as you think, there might be historical records. The colony database goes back 300 years, but there are references to older surveys. Let me see what I can find." "You'll help me?" Hana asked. "I must be crazy, but yes, something this important shouldn't be buried in a junkyard." Minji pulled out her own tablet. "Though I'm going to need access to some restricted databases, which is technically illegal." "I won't tell if you won't," Hana said with a small smile. Over the next week, they worked together. Minji dug through centuries of data while Hana continued to restore the ship's systems. They discovered references to strange energy readings in this sector dating back over 1,000 years. Survey ships had noted anomalies but dismissed them as natural phenomena. Then Hana made a breakthrough. She found the ship's main computer core, a crystalline structure embedded deep in the walls. When she connected her modified power cell directly to it, the ship responded in a way it never had before. The musical patterns became clearer. They formed sequences that repeated and changed, like someone trying to remember how to speak. Hana recorded everything, playing the patterns back and trying to find meaning in them. "It's teaching itself how to communicate," she realized one night. "It's been damaged so long that it forgot how to talk. But it's learning again." The ship began to show her images. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing her scenes from a time before humans had ever left Earth. She saw massive cities made of crystal and light. She saw ships that moved between stars like birds flying through air. She saw beings, tall, elegant creatures with 4 arms and faces that seemed to shift between expressions like water flowing. And she saw war. She saw darkness spreading across the stars like ink in water. She saw ships fleeing and worlds burning. She saw the medical vessel, this ship, evacuating civilians while explosions tore the space around it apart. The final image showed the ship jumping away, its engines damaged, tumbling into the void. Then the displays went dark. Hana sat in the silence, tears running down her face. She understood now. This ship was a survivor, just like her. It had been rejected by fate, thrown away into the garbage heap of space, and it had waited. 3,000 years of waiting for someone to care enough to save it. "I won't let you die," she whispered to the ship. "I promise." The musical patterns changed. They became softer, almost gentle. If Hana had to give them a name, she would call them grateful. But above the colony, in the darkness of space, something stirred. An ancient signal had finally been heard. A distress call that had echoed through the void for millennia had reached ears that still listened, and those ears belonged to something that remembered the civilization that had built this ship. Something that had destroyed that civilization once before. Something that was coming back to finish the job. In the colony's administrative building, Director Woo-Jin Choi stared at power consumption reports. There were fluctuations in the grid that made no sense. Small drains coming from the industrial district, specifically from the junkyard. "Lee," he called to his security chief, "I want you to investigate the old junkyard. Something strange is happening there." Sang-Woo Lee nodded. "I'll send a team in the morning." Hana had no idea that her time was running out. She worked through the night, her hands moving across alien interfaces, her mind racing to understand systems that had been ancient when her ancestors were still learning to make fire. The ship's core pulsed in response to her efforts. Deep in its fragmented memory, a designation activated, a name it had almost forgotten. Keeper 7. It was Keeper 7. And the small human who worked so hard to save it would need a name too. The ship listened to the sounds the other human made, the one who brought the hot liquid. Hana. The small one was called Hana. Keeper 7 decided that it liked this name. It liked the human who bore it. And it would do everything in its remaining power to protect her from what was coming. Everything fell apart on a Tuesday morning. Hana was working on what she had started calling the memory banks when she heard voices above her. Security officers in their gray uniforms stood at the edge of the excavation site, and Sang-Woo Lee was with them. His face was hard as stone. "Step away from the structure," he commanded. "This area is now under colonial security lockdown." "No," Hana said. "You don't understand. This ship needs help. If we stop now, it will—" "This is an unknown alien artifact that poses a potential threat to the colony. You're a minor who has been trespassing and illegally accessing systems you don't understand." Sang-Woo climbed down into the site. "We've also arrested Minji Park for unauthorized access to classified databases. Whatever you two thought you were doing, it's over." Hana felt her world crumbling. "Minji didn't do anything wrong. She was just helping me research. Please, you have to let me explain." "You'll have time to explain at the security office. Come on." As security officers escorted her away, Hana looked back at the ship. The symbols were flashing frantically now, the musical patterns turned sharp and distressed. The ship knew something was wrong. It was afraid. "I'll come back," Hana shouted. "I promise!" At the security office, everything got worse. Her father arrived, his face exhausted and disappointed. Tae-sung worked so hard to keep them safe, and now his daughter had been arrested. Hana wanted to disappear into the floor. "Unorthodox methods," Director Woo Jin Choi said, reading from a report. "That's what your Academy rejection letter said. I'm starting to understand what they meant. Do you have any idea how dangerous this is? An alien ship that's been buried for who knows how long, and you've been pumping power into it like it's one of your hobby projects." "It's not dangerous," Hana insisted. "It's a medical ship. I've seen the records. It was evacuating refugees during a war. It's programmed to help people, not hurt them." "You can't read the language. You don't know what it says." "I understand the patterns. I understand what it's trying to tell me." "You're 14 years old." "I know." Hana stood up, her fists clenched. "Everyone keeps saying that like it matters. Like being young means I can't be right. The ship doesn't care about my age. It just cares that someone finally listened to it after 3,000 years of being alone." The room went quiet. Director Choi looked at her with something that might have been respect or might have been concern. 3,000 years? How could you possibly know that? Before Hana could answer, alarms started blaring throughout the building. Red emergency lights flashed. A technician burst into the room. "Director, we have a situation. Long-range sensors are picking up unknown vessels entering the system. 3 ships, possibly more. They're not responding to any communications and their configuration doesn't match any known design." Director Choi's face went pale. "Show me." They moved to the operations center. On the main display, Hana saw 3 shapes moving through space. They looked wrong somehow, like ships that had been grown instead of built. Dark and twisting, covered in what looked like biological material, and they were headed straight for Cheongsan 7. "Those are swarm ships," Hana whispered. Everyone turned to look at her. "What did you say?" asked Director Choi. "The medical ship showed me images. The Drago, that's what the aliens called themselves. They were destroyed by something called the Consuming Swarm, a hive mind entity that devours entire civilizations. The ship was fleeing from them when it crashed here." Hana pointed at the screen. "Those ships look exactly like the ones in the memory banks." "That's impossible. There's never been any evidence of hostile alien life." "Because the Drago lost." Hana's voice was rising. "They all died 3,000 years ago. The ship I found is the last piece of their entire civilization, and now the swarm has tracked its distress signal." Sang-Woo Lee checked his displays. "Sir, whatever those ships are, they'll reach orbit in 6 hours. Our defense satellites are designed for asteroids and debris, not military vessels." Director Choi stared at the screen, his mind clearly racing. Finally, he looked at Hana. Can the ship help us? I don't know. Most of its systems are still offline, but it's been trying to restore itself. If I had more time. How much time? Days. Maybe a week if I push hard. We have 6 hours. Hana felt sick. She had been so close. The ship had been so close to waking up fully. But 6 hours was not enough time. It was impossible. Then she thought about the Academy rejection letter in her pocket. About being told she was unorthodox and unsuitable, about every teacher who said she needed to follow the rules and every student who laughed at her strange ideas. It's impossible the normal way, she said slowly. But I don't do things the normal way. Director Choi looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Sang-woo, release Minji Park and take them both back to the junkyard. Give them whatever resources they need. Sir, you can't be serious. I'm deadly serious. We have 3 alien warships coming to kill us, and our only hope is a buried ship and a rejected teenage girl. Sometimes you have to bet on the unorthodox option. He turned to Hana. You said it's a medical ship. Does it have weapons? I don't know. But medical ships in their fleet were also ARC ships. They carried genetic archives and refugees. The Drago would have protected them heavily. Then let's hope they protected them well enough. You have 6 hours. Make them count. Tae-sung grabbed Hana's shoulder as she started to leave. Be careful, he said quietly, and know that I'm proud of you. Even if this doesn't work, I'm proud. Hana hugged him tight. Then she ran for the junkyard. When she got there, Minji was already waiting with a truck full of equipment. Colony engineers were unloading power generators, computer systems, and tools. They looked skeptical, but determined. The director sent the best people he could spare, Minji said, which isn't saying much since it's mostly people who got in trouble for being too creative. He figured we'd understand each other. Hana smiled despite everything. A team of misfits and rejects trying to save the world with an ancient alien ship. It was so ridiculous it might actually work. She climbed down to the ship and pressed her hands against its surface. I need you to trust me, she said. We're going to do this the human way. It's going to be messy and weird and nothing like you're used to. But it's the only chance we have. The musical patterns that answered her were uncertain but willing. Good, Hana said. Then let's show them what rejected things can do when they work together. Above them, in the cold darkness of space, the swarm ships drew closer. They had followed the ancient signal across thousands of years. They remembered the Drago. They remembered the taste of that civilization's destruction, and they were hungry for more. 5 hours and 37 minutes until the swarm arrived. Hana stood before the ship with 12 colony engineers behind her. They ranged from young technicians to old veterans, but they all had one thing in common. They had been rejected or dismissed at some point in their careers for thinking differently. Okay, Hana said, her voice shaking only a little. Here's what we know. The ship's power core is dead. We can't fix it the right way because we don't understand Drago technology well enough, so we're going to do it the wrong way. An older engineer named Hyun raised his hand. What's the wrong way? We're going to rip out our own fusion reactor from the colony's backup plant and wire it directly into the ship's systems. It will be messy, it will be dangerous, the power signatures won't match correctly. But it might give the ship enough energy to activate its defenses. The engineers stared at her. Then Hyun started laughing. That's the most insane plan I've ever heard. The power fluctuations alone could blow us all up. I know, Hana said. When do we start? For the next 3 hours, they worked like people possessed. The backup fusion reactor was normally used only in emergencies when the main plant went down. It took 6 people just to disconnect it safely. Then they had to transport it to the junkyard on heavy equipment, threading through narrow streets while people watched in confusion. Minji coordinated everything from her tablet, talking to the director's office and making sure resources kept flowing. She also monitored the approaching swarm ships, watching them draw closer with each passing minute. Meanwhile, Hana worked on the ship's interface. She had figured out that the crystalline computer core could accept input through direct neural connection. It was dangerous. The Drago had 4-lobed brains, while humans only had 2 hemispheres. The connection protocols might fry her mind, but they were out of time for safe options. "I'm going to link directly with the ship's intelligence," she announced. "When the reactor connects, I'll guide the ship through accepting the new power source." "Absolutely not," said Tae-sung. He had come to the junkyard despite everything, unable to stay away while his daughter risked her life. "You could die." "We'll all die if the swarm reaches us." Hana looked at her father. "I have to try." She did not wait for permission. She took the neural interface crown she had built, a crude thing made of wire and scavenged components, and placed it on her head. Then she pressed her hands against the ship's crystalline core. The world exploded into light and sound and sensation that had no name. Hana felt herself falling into the ship's consciousness. It was vast and old and so very tired. She saw its memories flash past like cards shuffling. She saw the Drago civilization at its height. She saw the medical bays filled with injured refugees. She saw the captain's desperate decision to jump away, even though the engines were damaged. And she met Keeper 7. The ship's intelligence was not like anything she had expected. It was gentle and curious, even after millennia of isolation. It looked at her with something like wonder. "I am Hana," she said in her mind. "I am here to help you." "I am Keeper 7, the intelligence responded, its voice like music made of mathematics. "I am the last. I carry the memory of 47 species. I carry the hope of the Drago. I thought I would die alone." "Not alone. Never alone again." Hana showed it the fusion reactor being lowered into position. "This is human power. It's crude compared to what you're used to, but it's what we have. Will you accept it?" Keeper 7 examined the reactor through the ship's sensors. "This is inefficient. The resonance patterns are wrong. The energy signature is unstable." "Yes, that's humans for you. We make things work even when they shouldn't. We're very good at impossible things." "I see that. You woke me when no one else could. You understood my patterns when you should not have been able to. Humans are strange. We prefer unorthodox. Very well. I will accept your gift. But the connection will be traumatic. My systems are designed for Drago power. Human energy will feel like fire in my circuits." "Then we'll burn together," Hana said. "Better that than dying cold." Outside, the engineers had the fusion reactor in position. Massive cables ran from it to the ship's power ports. Hyun looked at Minji. "Is she ready?" "She better be," Minji said, checking the time. "We have 43 minutes. "Connect it," Hyun ordered. Power slammed into the alien ship like a tidal wave of raw energy. Keeper 7 screamed in Hana's mind, and Hana screamed with it. The human power was wrong, all wrong, burning through circuits designed for elegant crystalline flow. It was like replacing blood with acid. But Keeper 7 adapted. It rerouted systems. It changed pathways. It learned to accept the harsh human energy and transform it into something it could use. And Hana helped, her mind racing through the ship's architecture, finding solutions that no Drago engineer would have considered because they made no logical sense, which was exactly why they worked. All over the buried ship, systems began to activate. The medical bay fully restored itself. Navigation came online. Life support activated for the first time in 3,000 years. And deep in the ship's armored hull, weapons systems that had slept since the fall of the Drago Empire woke up hungry. "We need to get this ship into space," Hana gasped, breaking the connection. Blood ran from her nose and her head felt like it was splitting apart. "Can we do that?" "The ship is still half buried," Sang-woo said. He had been monitoring the operation from the edge of the site. We'd need explosives to free it. Lots of explosives. Then use them. We have... Hana checked the time. 28 minutes. They used every explosive charge in the colony's mining supply. They evacuated everyone within 2 kilometers, and when Hyun hit the detonator, the ground shook like an earthquake was tearing the world apart. The ship rose from the junkyard on pillars of flame and human stubbornness. It was not graceful. Drago ships floated like dancers. This ship lurched into the sky like a drunk falling upward. But it flew. Inside the ship, Hana felt every system straining. The human reactor was giving everything it had. Keeper 7 was adapting faster than she thought possible, and together, they guided the medical vessel up through atmosphere and into the darkness of space. Just as the swarm ships entered orbit, they were enormous things, 3 times larger than any human vessel. Their hulls pulsed with organic movement. They saw the rising medical ship and turned toward it with predatory intent. Keeper 7. Hana whispered, still linked to the ship's mind. Can we fight them? I do not know. I was designed to heal, not to harm. But I was also designed to protect my passengers. And you, Hana Kim, are now my passenger. Then let's show them that medical ships can have teeth. The swarm ships opened fire. But the ancient Drago medical vessel, powered by a human fusion reactor and guided by a rejected 14-year-old girl, was already moving. And it was done being alone in the dark. It was done being rejected by the universe. It was ready to fight. The first swarm ship fired a weapon that looked like living darkness. Keeper 7 dodged with movements that should have been impossible for a ship its size. The blast tore past and hit Cheongsan 7's moon, leaving a crater that glowed with sickly green light. Hana felt every movement through her connection to the ship. It was like her body had expanded to include kilometers of hull and weapon systems. She could feel the strain on the human reactor, the way Keeper 7 was having to work around the crude power to make anything function properly. Defensive shields at 60%. Keeper 7 reported in her mind. Weapons systems charging but unstable. The human power source creates unpredictable surges. That's okay, Hana said. Unpredictable can be good. Can you calculate their attack patterns? They are using the same tactics the swarm employed 3,000 years ago. They expect us to respond as the Drago would have. But we're not just Drago anymore. We're something new. Hana grinned, despite the blood running from her nose. Let's be unpredictable. The medical ship rolled in a way no Drago vessel would have, presenting its armored underside to the swarm. Then it fired. The weapons were designed to shoot elegant beams of coherent energy. But filtered through human power, they came out as ragged bolts of lightning that scattered and jumped between targets. It was messy. It was inefficient. And it hit all 3 swarm ships at once because the energy was too wild to follow predicted paths. The swarm ships recoiled in confusion. This was not how the Drago fought. This made no sense. On the colony below, everyone watched the space battle on emergency screens. They saw their ancient alien ship fighting with what looked like barely controlled chaos. They saw it taking hits that should have destroyed it, but somehow deflecting them at the last moment through movements that seemed random, but worked anyway. She's making it up as she goes, Minji whispered, watching from the operations center. No, said Director Choi. She's fighting the way humans fight. We don't need to be elegant. We just need to win. In space, the battle raged. The swarm ships were more powerful, and their weapons more precise. But Keeper 7 had something they did not expect, a human mind wired directly into its consciousness, thinking in ways that broke every rule of proper tactics. When the swarm ships tried to surround the medical vessel, Hana had Keeper 7 fly directly at the largest one. The swarm ship moved to intercept, expecting a collision. Instead, Keeper 7 spun at the last moment, fired its thrusters in a pattern that created a temporary gravity well, and used the swarm ship's own mass to slingshot around it. The move was insane. It violated basic physics. It only worked because human engineering sometimes created unexpected effects when pushed to the limit. Keeper 7 never would have thought of it in a million years. But Hana thought of it. Because she had learned engineering from broken equipment in a junkyard, where nothing worked the way it was supposed to, and you had to find creative solutions or give up. The medical ship came out of the slingshot maneuver behind all three swarm ships. Its weapons fired again, concentrating on the largest vessel. The wild human-powered energy tore through the organic hull like it was paper. The swarm ship died screaming across multiple frequencies. The other two swarm ships retreated, pulling back to regroup. They had never encountered a Drago vessel that fought like this. They had no protocols for dealing with tactics that made no logical sense. "Keeper 7, Hana gasped. She was exhausted, barely holding on to consciousness. "Can we finish this? If I push the reactor to maximum, I can fire all weapons at once. But the surge will likely destroy the human power source. We will be defenseless afterward. If we don't destroy them now, they'll keep coming. They'll bring more ships. This is our only chance." Hana's vision was blurring. "Do it." Keeper 7 hesitated. In all its 3,000 years, it had never had to make a choice like this. The Drago had programmed it to preserve itself above all else. It carried the genetic archives of 47 extinct species. It was precious beyond measure. But it also carried Hana Kim, a 14-year-old human who had refused to let it die alone. A girl who the universe had rejected, but who rejected the universe right back. "For someone who was not wanted by your academy," Keeper 7 said gently, "you are remarkably valuable. So are you. That's why we're going to win." The fusion reactor surged to power levels that made the engineers on the ground gasp in horror. Energy poured into Keeper 7's weapon systems. Every gun, every defense system, every piece of technology that could be weaponized lit up like a star being born. The medical ship fired everything at once. The space around Cheongsan 7 turned white with unleashed power. The two remaining swarm ships tried to flee, but the energy caught them, tore through them, unmade them on a molecular level. They did not even have time to scream. When the light faded, the sky was clear. The swarm was gone, and the fusion reactor was dead, its core burned out from the impossible demand Hana had placed on it. Keeper 7 drifted in space, victorious but powerless. Inside, Hana slumped in the neural connection chamber. Minji's voice came over the communication system. "Hana! Hana, respond! Are you alive?" "Alive," Hana whispered. "Tired. So tired. We're sending up rescue ships. Just hold on." But Keeper 7 was speaking in Hana's mind one last time. "I am dying again. Without power, I will go dark. But this time I do not die alone. This time I die having seen something beautiful." "What?" Hana asked. "Hope. The Drago lost all hope when they fell, but humans do not work like that, do they? You get rejected and you just try harder. You get told something is impossible and you do it anyway. You are stubborn in a way my creators never were." "Is that good or bad?" "It is necessary. The swarm is not gone from the galaxy, Hana Kim. They are merely sleeping. The universe will need humans when they wake again. Then don't die. Stay with us. We'll find new power sources. We'll figure it out together. You already have. Look." Hana looked through the ship's sensors and saw what Keeper 7 meant. Colony ships were rising from Cheongsan 7, carrying every power cell, every battery, every piece of equipment that could generate electricity. The entire colony was emptying their reserves to give the ancient ship enough energy to survive. People who had never believed in aliens were betting everything to save one. Minji coordinated the rescue operation, and within 2 hours, Keeper 7 had enough power to limp back to the colony. They landed in the junkyard where it had all begun. the ship settling into the cleared space like it was coming home. Hana disconnected from the neural interface and immediately collapsed. Medical teams rushed in to stabilize her. The connection had nearly killed her, burning pathways in her brain that would never fully heal. She would always have headaches. She would always see strange colors at the edge of her vision. But she would also always be able to hear Keeper 7's musical patterns in the back of her mind. They were linked now, human and ship, in a way that science could not fully explain. Hana woke up 3 days later in a medical bay. Not the ship's medical bay, though Keeper 7 had offered. She was in the colony hospital with her father sleeping in a chair beside her bed. Director Choi visited on the 4th day. "The Academy has asked me to deliver a message. They would like to formally apologize for rejecting your application. They're offering you a full scholarship with complete freedom to study whatever you want." Hana thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. "No, thank you." "No? I don't need a school that only wants me after I prove I'm useful. I need a place that wants people before they prove anything." She sat up carefully. "I'm going to start my own school, for rejects and misfits, for people who think sideways. Keeper 7 says the Drago had a place like that once. It was where their best scientists came from." Director Choi smiled. "I might know some funding sources who would be interested in that. And speaking of Keeper 7, there's something you should know. The ship's medical archives contain cures for diseases we thought were incurable, agricultural techniques that could feed billions, and warning data about the swarm that might save humanity someday. The Drago spent 3,000 years waiting to give that knowledge to someone," Hana said. "I'm glad it was us." 6 months later, Hana stood in the observation deck of Keeper 7's restored vessel. The ship orbited Cheongsan 7 now, serving as both a research station and a monument. Human engineers had learned to work with Drago technology, creating hybrid systems that were more powerful than either race could have built alone. Minji worked as the head of xenoarchaeological research, documenting everything they learned about the 47 extinct species in Keeper 7's archives. Tae-sung had retired from the fusion plant to help his daughter run her new school. Even Sang-woo Lee visited sometimes, admitting that he had been wrong to try to shut everything down. "You saved more than a ship," Keeper 7's voice said in Hana's mind. It could speak directly to her now, through the permanent link they shared. "You saved hope." "You saved me first," Hana replied. "When the Academy rejected me, I thought I was broken. But I was just different. We both were. And different is not the same as wrong. No. Sometimes different is exactly what the universe needs." Below them, Cheongsan 7 turned in space. It was no longer just a backwater colony. It had become humanity's first line of contact with ancient alien technology. Scientists came from across human space to study Keeper 7's archives. And at Hana's new school, young people who did not fit anywhere else learned that being rejected by one place just meant you were meant for something greater. The swarm would wake again someday. The galaxy held dangers that humanity could not yet imagine, but they would face those dangers together, humans and the last remnant of the Drago, learning from each other's strengths, covering each other's weaknesses. A rejected girl and a forgotten ship had changed everything. Not by being perfect, but by refusing to give up when the universe said they were not good enough. That, Keeper 7 decided, was the most human thing of all, and it was beautiful.